Hello guys, we have a lot to cover today. We're gonna talk watts, lux, lumens, power measurements, so it's all about filters today.
Lights!
Oh, lights! They say it's about lights. Welcome to the beautiful world of aquascaping. A lot of you guys requested this topic. We're gonna cover basically all the lights we have, what we sell. We've done this video a few years ago, but the industry changes so quickly that there's a lot of new stuff now. So we're gonna have all the ADA lights, Chihiros lights, ONF, Denelle, Odyssea, TWINSTAR, and yeah, all what you see here, we're gonna cover them. I'm gonna tell you how to choose the perfect light for your setup. This goes both for newcomers in the hobby with entry-level lights and both for more advanced hobbyists who want the high-level stuff. So yeah, join me on this journey. It would be really difficult to show you the lights the way they are now. I'm not sure how I could open them, so I need some magic. Let's look at them one by one. I need some magic. Let's start this journey about 10 years ago. Now you can see two main types of lights in front of me. The T5 tube lights and an LED light. But 10 years ago we had the T8 lights and the HQI lights, which disappeared from the hobby basically. HQI lights had a really specific, really emotional light, which we lost because they get too hot. The production of the lights and the light bulbs is not friendly to the environment. So now we're stuck with these two. But it's a good thing. Actually, the T5s are going out as well. Slowly, LED is taking over the hobby, just like everywhere in life. While the T5 is around, it can be a really good, cheaper option for getting into aquascaping. And it's actually much easier to figure out which light you need because there's two basic rules we follow. First of all, you need about 6500 K as the light temperature. That's basically the white light of the sun. The other thing is, for aquascaping, the minimum level is half a watt for every liters of your aquarium. The high-tech lighting is 1 watt for every liters. You can go anywhere in between. There is a level where you need to add CO2 to balance out the highlighting. That's somewhere around 0.7, 0.8 watts per liter, but this only goes for the T5s and T8s. With LEDs, all this goes to the trash. It's not working anymore, so you need different calculations and you basically need advice. You can't really figure out yourself, so that's why we are here. Shape-wise, you have basically 3 different types of lights. First, you have the ones that you can put on the side of the tank, which has legs that fit perfectly. These are restricted in size. So a 60 centimeter light you can fit on a 60 centimeter tank and that's it. Second option is some are adjustable, so you can actually pull out the legs. With that you have to be a bit careful because if you fit a 60 centimeter light on a 90 centimeter tank, the corner is going to be too dark, so it's never going to be perfect light all around the tank. Third option is pending lights, which is I think the best option in most cases. First of all, you have some clear space to reach into the tank, which you don't have with any other option. You have to adjust the light, put it in the back of the tank, front of the tank, just to make some trimming or a simple water change. With the pendant lights, you have 20, 30, 40 centimeters, however you adjust it, and also you can balance out the power of the light with bringing it higher or lower. When you're choosing your light, you also have to consider the effect it's going to have on your living room, for example. If you have a setup with a 70 centimeter cabinet, you have the tank on top of it, and you have a couch right next to the aquarium, then it matters how powerful your light is, because if it's too powerful, it's gonna distract you all the time because you're sitting quite low, the light is here, and it's constantly reaching into your eyes. For this, some manufacturers have shades for the lights. For example, ADA has it for the solar RGB. You should check the light in person. Go into a shop and check how they look, because every light is a bit different, and that's really up to taste which you're gonna like. For example, the ADA Aquasky G, which is not RGB, it's a white light. It's a bit yellowish. The greens are really green, but everything else gets a bit yellowish underneath. On the other side, there is the TWINSTAR S, which is RGB but not controllable in the color levels, and that turns your tank really red. You can go with something that you can actually control the colors. On that side, you have to be careful what you're doing, because if you put it on extremely red, extremely blue, extremely green, you can create a light which is very nice for your eyes, but not so useful for the plants. So to set up a Chihiro's light, tell the app when you want the sun to rise. Here in the showroom, we want it at 9:30, because we opened the store at 10, so we want it to be dimmed up by the customers come in. Hit done. Next step is the time of daylight, which is the lighting time all together with the ramp up as well. So I hit 8 hours. Next, the ramp up time is half an hour. As for the effect of the light, there's two different things. One is how you see your tank in a certain light. The second is how your plants feel themselves under the light. So if you have a tank running with something simple, a T5 tube light, and you don't have the red colors, you don't have the dense carpet you want, and you switch to a brand new high-end LED light, you're gonna see a difference immediately, because the color rendering is different. So what the plants reflect to your eyes are actually different, because the light source is different. But the effect of the different light, that takes 2 or 3 weeks to come out. So after 2 or 3 weeks, for example, a rotella starts to grow, it grows 5 centimeters, 6 centimeters, whatever, that growth is gonna have a different color. So you have to be able to differentiate the color you see and the color the plant has. It's not the same thing, and both can change if you replace your light. Another frequently asked question is how long these lights gonna last. Obviously, with the old ones, the T5s, the HQIs, if a bulb goes out, you just replace it and everything goes just as well. With LEDs, you can't really do this. But our experience is that these lights, under normal circumstances, which would be 7 or 8 hours of light a day, for that, you should be fine for 7 or 8 years at least. All this is true for quality third-party lights. But if you buy a really cheap light from somewhere, or you build a light yourself from LED strips, that's not gonna last 8 years. There is a misconception about LEDs that they don't generate too much heat. That's not true. LEDs generate a lot of heat, but all these lights are designed in a way that they have heat sinks over the LEDs, and that heat sink can make it easier for the light to actually release that heat. Some of the lights, the real big ones, they even have fans in them. So when you buy a cheap light or when you build it for yourself, the LED is going to overheat itself without you noticing it. And that can cause the coloration of the LED to change. So even if the color rendering and the color temperature, everything is perfect when you start out with a cheap LED, in about 6 months or 1 year tops, the color is going to change so much and the power of the light is going to go away so much that it's not enough for the plants anymore. That's why we usually recommend to avoid all these options. It's not because we want to make money, it's because we want you to save money in the long run. And now that we've mentioned LED strips, I want to talk about DIY. I know that a lot of you guys are making your own stuff for your aquarium, and that's really good. If that's basically another hobby besides aquascaping, to make stuff for yourself. But with LED lights, it's quite difficult. I have a quote which I found on George Farmer's Facebook. Someone asked him how much lumen per liter you think is good for a good planted scape. It sounds like a very simple question, quite reasonable, but the answer shows why it's wrong. Lumens isn't an entirely appropriate measurement. It's how bright the light is perceived by human eyes. Photosynthetically active radiation, PAR, is more useful. I would say if you hit 50 micromoles per square meter per second at substrate level with CO2 injection, you can grow most plants. Now, if you understood all that, congratulations, you are a geek. That's perfectly fine, go ahead, build your light. If you didn't understand this, don't build your light. That's gonna be your problem. These measurements are only available for high-end LEDs, which means you are already in the expensive territory, selecting the parts you're gonna build your light from. But what does all this mean? We have watts. That's basically the power consumption of the light. That was useful with T5 and HQI. It's not useful with LEDs. We have lumen and lux, and there's a huge difference in between them. Lumen is how much light is emitted by a light source. So I have a light in front of me, small particles of light are coming out of it, the amount of those is lumen. But there is lux, which is the actual amount of light hitting me, hitting the surface, and that's different. Some lights, for example the Denelle one, you can actually see a table which shows how much lux you get 10 centimeters below the water surface, 20 centimeters, 30, 40. This is actually useful information. You don't get this with most lights. That's why I say get advice from someone and check the lights for yourself in a showroom, a gallery. And there is also PAR, the photosynthetically active radiation, which is the amount of useful light for the plants. That comes from the power output of the light, the lumens, the lux, and the colors in that light all together. Now let's see the 4 different groups of lights based on what you should use them for. So from very simple fish tanks to the very extreme aquascaping stuff, let's divide them to groups. Basically, this is the selection for cheaper options for more simple aquariums. I usually say that there are lights that are perfectly fine for any fish tank, no plants, or just very, very simple, easy maintenance plants. From this table, that's basically this one. This is a quite bluish tint Odyssey light. It's LED, but I think it's worse than the most simple T5 lights for plants. That's just, where should I drop this? Second level is basically everything else in here, which is fine for a simple aquascape. So we are already in the planted tank territory. We don't really keep those kind of lights, which are only good for fish and for simple aquariums. These are the ones that I've mentioned, the 0.5 watts per liter for T5. All these LEDs are basically the same level. So the B series of TWINSTAR, the biggest step 600L Odyssey LED light, the T5 tubes, the Chihiro's A series. This is actually a bit higher than all the rest. The Denelle style LED and the Chihiro's 2C1, something like this is the code for it. The very small lights. Don't really compare these in sizes because, for example, from the B series TWINSTAR, this is a 30 centimeter one, but you can get it for 45, 60, 90, and I think even for 120 tank. So these are just one of each. Most of these have bigger sizes as well. The LEDs in this range are white LEDs. That's the simple one. This was the biggest issue when manufacturers started to switch to LEDs compared to the T5, because in the tube lights you have 2 or 4 or 6 or however many tubes which you can play around with the colors, because you can put in simple 6500K daylight tubes, and then you can put in the blend tubes, the purplish colors. You can even get some orange tint in there, so you can play around how the tank is gonna look under the light. With LEDs coming in, the cheapest and most simple option to start with was the white LEDs. So you can't really change the colors, you have no control over the color of the tank in overall. So that's still the case with the cheap options, and the RGB colors only come in with the high-end lights. And here we are at level 2, basically. You can actually find the same Chihiros light on this table as you found it on the previous one. That's because this light is adjustable from your phone, which in this price range, that's quite a unique stuff. So basically you can dim this down to the same level as all the previous lights, but it's perfect for the step 2 level as well. And step 2 would be 80% of the plants you can keep perfectly under these lights. If you're starting out, you really want to get into aquascaping, and you want carpeting plants and you want really dense plants in your aquarium, then this is your level. Price-wise, you are still not too high, but you can get away with using any plants except for the very, very demanding ones. You're never gonna get very deep, lush red colors with these lights, but you're gonna get some reddish tints on simpler plants. Here comes the Oase light, and you can find same stuff from JBL, Eheim and all those guys. It's basically a light made for their own set, but if you're tricky enough, you can actually put it on your tank without any issue. And then you have the third-party lights. Again, we have the Nelle with a nano light, still for small aquariums, but quite powerful one. An even better option would be ONF. We actually love this light for very small nano tanks. Still not the high-end stuff, but more advanced. And then we have the A series of Chihiros, which I should put somewhere, and the E series of TWINSTAR. We are getting into a lot of leathers. It's with every manufacturer, they have these series. You have to look them up, which kind is which. For example, with TWINSTAR, you have the B, which we've talked about earlier. That's the most simple one. Then you have C, which is classic. That's like very, very entry level, but already for plants. Then you have the E series, which TWINSTAR says is enough for the high-end stuff, but if you're not a pro. And then there is the S, which is the full-on, you have to keep an eye on your tank not to get too much algae light. Now, as we arrive to the pro stuff, the boxes get bigger and more colorful and more elegant. So we have a lot of RGB writings on these, and this is the level where you get that. We have the TWINSTAR 600S, which is RGB. Then we have the Aquasky RGB from ADA. We have the Chihiros W RGB, and then 2 nano lights. We have the ONF Flat Nano Plus, and then the Chihiros C2 RGB. What a lot of people have been missing for a few years now is that even these high-end lights, you couldn't really control them. For example, ADA, they say that we know better than you, which is, this might sound weird. They develop their lights to a level where they just want you to put it on, turn it on, that's it, trust them. It's gonna work perfectly. But a lot of people want to play around for this price range, and that's understandable. You get the same with your house light bulbs, where you can change the colors and get into mood with the light. Now you get that with the Chihiros. You can adjust the light temperatures. You can even go crazy and have it on full blue, full red, whatever. You can adjust it on sliders. Same for the small Chihiros. You have some control over the ONF as well. From your phone, you can dim it. You can set the gradual time of the dimming of the light when it comes on or turns off. And you can even have the same with the TWINSTAR light. And we also have the big ONF lights, the Flat 1 series, which you can have in 60 centimeters and 90 centimeters. These are also the very high-end level. you have some control over the color and you have control over its dimming. This is actually a light that I would say is too powerful for a 60p tank. We have the 90 centimeter one as well, which we actually use over a 120p in our showroom. Josh's tank was a very dense forest layout basically, and for that, if you have a 90 centimeter light on a 120 tank, obviously you're gonna get the corners a bit darker, but for certain hardscapes, just like this one, that actually adds to the drama of the build. So that can even be something that you can look for when you try to choose your light. Obviously, perfect tank for that would be a 90p, because it's a 90 centimeter light. And here we are at the extreme level. You have the ADA Solar RGB, then the Chihiro's VV2, and again, the ONF, slightly, it comes here as well. These two are quite close to the ONF in case that you have to be careful using them. You have to know what you're doing. If you are newcomer to the hobby, don't use such strong lights. If you want the best result, use these lights. What I mean is that very last 5% of perfection in plant health and plant colors, that comes from these lights. We have a lot of questions about our lighting routine here in the gallery. And first of all, if we start a new tank with dimmed lights, simple answer, no. We have the light power on full from day one. We didn't even notice any difference. And of course, we have to show a certain look in the showroom all the time. But you can do it at home. It's not a problem if you start out on day one with 50% and then gradually higher the level of lighting, maybe 5% every week, and then you can reach the top by the time the plants have grown out perfectly. This way you won't have all the intense colors so quickly. If you have the light on full from the start, then all the plants gonna start to grow with their full nicest colors. Another thing is the duration of light. We have the lights on for 7 hours, and we usually recommend the same for any high-tech setup. So if you have really powerful lighting, don't have it on for more than 7 hours a day. If you have a bit less powerful, then you can go up to 8 or 8.5 hours, but I would say that's the tops. So even if you have a really low power light, if you have it on for 12 hours a day, you're gonna have algae, whatever you do. So try to keep it around 7 or 8 hours, that's the best. The third thing is when you should have the lights on. The lighting doesn't have to follow the day-night cycle outside. You can have the lights on when you're at home, when you're enjoying the tank. So if you go to sleep at 10 p.m., then have the lights on from 3 p.m. to 10 p.m. You have your 7 hours, and it's perfectly fine. It doesn't matter that the sun is already set by the time your light turns off. I hope you've learned everything you wanted to, and I hope you have all the information to choose the perfect light for yourself. If you're still not sure, please visit a gallery or a shop where you can see it for yourself, where you can see the colors live and not on photos or videos, and ask for advice from professionals. Those are the best ways if you're not sure 100%. And with that, see you next week. Goodbye. Hit the bell.
Next week on Green Aqua, it's time for Tommy and Balázs to set up their tanks based on the 2 shopping lists they finalized in a previous video.
I think I kind of overbought myself a bit.
He never knows what he actually needs.